So Gary Danielson, the lead man over at CBS, had this to say about the Dogs after watching them. He said, "There's been a lot of talk about the team is struggling, and it's a bad omen." He said it wasn't a bad omen last year. He was kind of talking about the Kent State game and the Missouri game, and then he said this. He said, "I think uh, all in all, this game could not have gone better for Georgia. They were tested. Kirby wanted them to be tested, and they answered." I'm, I've been doing this for so long, y'all. I mean, Gary Danielson has too. I got a chance to talk to him at media days briefly as I rock back and forth in my Eco Poly chair here. Um, there are ups and downs in seasons, and I mean, I'm not sure Georgia's had a down yet. These first halves are definitely the problem. They are not. They are not. You know, massive problems. So I mean, I have to be honest with you. I don't. When I watch teams around the country, Alabama has a very serious problem right now. They have a quarterback problem, like a real problem. Florida State nearly lost to Boston College. Like that almost happened. Clemson, they did lose to Duke by 3 touchdowns. Tennessee got blown out by Florida. Well, blown out. They got beat really bad by an unranked and left for dead Florida team. They were the number 11 team in the country. Colorado is going for all the hubbub about Colorado, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. They nearly lost and probably should have lost to Colorado State, who is, not great. When you look at, I mean, I don't know necessarily why people are overwhelmingly critical or criticizing Ohio State and Michigan. They've just not been unbelievable. And then, LSU getting really beat up bad in the fourth quarter by Florida State. There's been a lot of problems nationwide with everybody. I mean, South Carolina is 1-2 right now. Mississippi State absolutely throttled by LSU. And when you look around the country, I mean, I think Washington has played really well. Perhaps Penn State, although I have not watched a lot of Penn State. Georgia is exactly where they need to be right now, which is 3-0, completely in control of their own destiny. And, I'm not sure I spot a loss on their schedule right now. Now we're going to see as time moves on here. Do they have, can someone jump up and get them? I mean, the answer to that is sure, but will that happen? All in all, this game could not have been better for Georgia. They were tested. Kirby wanted them to be tested, and they answered. They did answer. I mean, they were down 11 at the half. They'd not been down like that since the Ohio State game. And before that, the Missouri game. And before that, it was the Florida game in 20. So they did not respond in that game. I mean, that was as bad a quarterback performance as I've seen at Georgia ever, maybe. Well, I don't know. Missouri with Grayson Lambert in 2015 was just bad football. I don't know if it was all him, but that was pretty rough. But yeah, I mean, there's an article. I'm gonna try to get to the site and show you real quick. There's an article right now on Dog Post, and Larry Reeves wrote it today. And his point is that Georgia folks are, as usual. I mean, this is what folks do, and they do. It's not just Georgia, and by the way, don't miss it. This is a free article. 6,000 people have read it already, and not even in a day. So here's his global point. While the second half was much better, as was the final result, I went home thinking Georgia had some serious problems to address. Having rewatched the game a couple of times, I've changed my mind. Make sure you're going to Eco Poly and taking this 15% off and free delivery opportunity. They're going to give you a 20-year residential warranty. This thing is made in Georgia, eco-friendly. They're really good products. They don't send you a full box of parts and thick industrial instruction book that's hard to understand. You can enjoy your products, the eco-friendly Eco Poly products, in under 10 minutes. We've done most of the work for you. We make our poly lumber with built-in UV inhibitors to create a solid and durable product with a 20-year warranty. Y'all, did you see that pool? Very nice. But Larry's point here is, hey, this team's got problems. Okay. And he lays them out here, all 5 of them, as he puts it. But right here is where he's like, hey, it's not all bad. I think this right here, number 3, discipline and resilience, that is extremely important right now. That's something that this team has got that maybe everybody else doesn't. Hey, by the way, our friends at Red Zone have reordered this flag, but they're going to run out of it. So take advantage of that while you can too. That's all over the website. I just, what Gary Danielson is saying is right. Go back. Well, none of y'all go back, and that's fine. Y'all have jobs. Y'all have lives, and I'm supposed to be doing the going back. So you just I'll tell you right now, go back and look at some of the games from national championship teams, and we don't know if this team's a national championship team. Go back and look at some of the games. Not just the Missouri game for Georgia in 22 or the Clemson game where they just, they did not play great against Clemson that night. Go back and look at Clemson in 18 against Syracuse, against Texas A&M. Deshaun Watson, they lost to Pitt at home, to Pitt. They should have lost to NC State, and that was an amazing miracle win for Clemson. They don't win that 16 national championship without that win and the Louisville win. They narrowly won some of those games, and then they got hot at times. Go back and look at Alabama in 15. They lose to Ole Miss. They're out of the top 10. They have to save themselves against Mississippi State. I think it was in 17. They're this is sports, y'all. I mean, USC doesn't get to the national championship game against Texas if they don't get the Bush push against Notre Dame. Okay, so what happened in the South Carolina game where Georgia was in total control as the fourth quarter starts? That's not a close game. That's a close game to you because you're used to them blowing people out in the first half. That's not close either. But, everything can't be judged on, oh man, why aren't they just crushing people? Because the other team has players too. A. B, because you're not throwing on air. There's other people out there. Now, there's I've talked enough about what, the place kicking situation, it's got to get better. I don't know if that means you have to replace the place kicker. He's 4 of 7. One of the misses was completely excusable. The 2 inside the 30 are not. Now, you're talking about a freshman kicker. Does that get better? It should. I'm old enough to remember Blair Walsh just getting into a straight up funk in 2011. He just was in a bad position. Marshall Morgan missed some rough kicks at the beginning of his career. It happens. But if I were Kirby on that particular thing, there's a reason why you're starting him. And I would make sure you start him and play him long enough that that you have to make a move. They don't have to yet. And he's playing because he's the best position. He's the best at that position. That's it. This is not magic. They're playing the best players. Anybody thinking otherwise, it's not true. Why would they put someone out there that's not better? Do you really think that Nick Saban is going with Jalen Milroe now and went with him beforehand because he's doing some sort of roundabout? No, that's their best option. Coaches are trying to stay employed, y'all. And they're going to play the best players. And that's going to lead to, being tested at times because your best players don't always play great. They don't always play great. I think all in all, this game could not have gone better for Georgia. They were tested. Kirby wanted them to be tested, and they answered. They did answer. The fans don't want them to be tested. I can assure you of that. That I can confirm that part. But if you're going to win a championship, uh, you're gonna have a fight. You just are. I don't know when it will be, but you will have a fight. You might only have one. Georgia had two last year. In 01, they had three. The Clemson game and the two Alabama games. To some degree, the Tennessee game, a little bit. They didn't play great against Missouri at the start of that game. They were losing at the end of the first quarter. I think it was 3-0, if my memory serves correct. And then they kind of exploded on Missouri. They didn't play well against Charleston Southern, actually, that year. They didn't play great against South Carolina. Now, the whole time I'm talking about those games, Charleston Southern, Missouri, South Carolina, those all wound up being blowouts more than we just saw from Georgia against South Carolina. But I think that this team is the best team in college football. I don't think they're so much better than everybody else like they were last year. I think that they have to understand that the world views them the same way it did in 22, but the teams they play don't. And they should not view themselves as 22 because they're not. And although, Carson Beck's throwing for 74%, which is a pretty amazing accomplishment as a quarterback, he has to understand that, being critical of the quarterback in this league is just, it's like putting the jersey on. I mean, it just happens when you play. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people like me say. It doesn't matter what Gary Danielson says. It only matters how you compete and perform. So this team and this program are on the right trajectory. They are just not going as fast as everybody would like. 48-7 wins have become not good enough because we're seeing how tight the dress is and how high the heels are. We're not worried about anything else other than the way things look. And there's substance right now at this part of the season. You have to build your team, and it's easier said than done to go out there and destroy people all the time. Florida State this past week, rough. Alabama, rough. Florida State, I already said Florida State. Florida State, Tennessee, Alabama, bad. It was rough out there for them. It was not great for Georgia, but they won going away. So I think Gary is right. But I have to say, and I could be wrong about this, I wonder if that's that they could. I mean, is that the toughest that they're going to be tested this year? I don't know. I mean, I think it could be, and I mean, it could be. I mean, Auburn is having a hard time scoring, y'all. They just, it was their game with Cal was bad, rough, and then that's not just about going out to play in California. Kentucky just coughing the ball up everywhere this past weekend and not looking so hot at other times. Florida, I mean, are we talking about the Florida from, the Utah game? Because they get sawed in half by Georgia. And the team that played Tennessee probably has a hard time against the Dogs too. How about the Vols? I mean, they're going to have to play a lot better to beat Georgia. And probably going to have to play a lot better to keep it close. Tennessee has not been great this year, certainly in the first half and the whole game against Florida. So, there are games. Georgia Tech, in a way, is playing above the expectation I've had for them. Brent, he has done a good job. He has done a good job at Tech of stopping this insanity that has been on North Avenue. But I just don't know if Georgia will get pushed like that again. My suspicion is they will, but I don't know by who. Vanderbilt, maybe not. I mean, Kentucky and Vanderbilt Vanderbilt's in Nashville. Kentucky will be a big physical test for them. South Carolina always plays Georgia pretty rough and tough. I've left out Ole Miss. Why is Ole Miss a 7-point dog at Alabama? That means they're going to be like a 2-touchdown dog at Georgia. Then they can score. They have a pretty good quarterback. They may be, Spencer Rattler really kept South Carolina in this game for a half, but then he wasn't hot. And, Georgia adjusted, and you're allowed to adjust. Gary Danielson said Kirby wanted this. You think he's right?